Hi everyone, Joe Kehrig with the Kehrig Real Estate Team, and welcome to week 4, sheltering in place and how it affects our real estate. First off, as always, our prayers are with you and your family, that you're safe, that you're sheltered in place, and remember, we're all in this together. We've talked about before different things that we're trying to do for our friends and our clients, and please reach out if there's anything that we can do. We've already delivered a lot of hand sanitizer for the cars, which we were able to get about a month ago. We ordered a couple thousand little spray hand sanitizers. So if you need any, just drop us an email at info@kehrigteam.com and for your car when you are able to go out. First off, how to go last week. I think really we always talk about 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I think it was really 2 leaps forward and 1 step back. First off, the malaria drug is showing great promise. There's a lot of now tests being done in New York, which has kind of now flatlined a little bit. The curve is softening there. The stock market's coming back on the good news. Certainly, interest rates are still staying solid. They're about 3.75, though I will tell you, jumbo loans, depending on where you are, but in here it's a little bit over $500,000-600,000, are still difficult because you have a secondary money market. You can get them, but they're just a little bit more difficult, a little bit more expensive. FHA loans, they actually raise the credit score from 580 to 640. So they tightened up the FHA to try to get the log jam, because there's a big log jam as far as with all the refinances and everything that we were going with. The other thing too that's great is we're hearing about the stockpiles, the masks, the testing kits, the ventilators. I was amazed to read that Tesla is building a ventilator out of Model 3 parts, just out of the Model 3 parts. It's unbelievable, what these companies are doing. GM, Ford, all these companies are coming together, and the American people are coming together. One of the things that we know is the shelter in place, as California has borne out, that has kept the curve lower, is actually working. And people ask me, Joe, what do you think? You think it's going to be sheltering in place for a little bit longer? I do think they're probably going to extend it. I think it's probably 50-50 because the results are really good. And, we're talking about May 6th, so we're still, almost a month away, and a lot, hopefully if this good news starts, we can start getting back into the economy. They talk about now being able to test if people have had, the virus and have the antibodies that actually they can go back to work. They can work in the restaurants. They can work in the hospitals because now they're somewhat immune to it because they've had it and they've built up the antibodies. So that's just right around the corner. So I can see that how we ease back in to getting back to work, which obviously we need to do with obviously the safety of our population and those weakest among us being the most important thing. You always say 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Obviously, whenever anybody dies, it's a real person to the family and the friends around that person, and it's tragic. Though I reported last week, the numbers they were talking about last week was 120 to 240,000. That now has been reduced down to around 60,000 because of everything that this country's pulling together to do. And when we talk about the shelter in place, I found this slide, and, unlike some foreign countries that basically locked the doors and made the people go inside, bottom line is no one's locking our doors. We still have the freedom. We're basically coming together as a country to beat this, and part of it is staying sheltered in place when you're able to. And obviously, as every week, we want to thank not only obviously we always talk about our military and first responders, but the doctors, the nurses, the truck drivers, the people stocking the shelves, the farmers. But understand, we do have that freedom to be able to still go out, even though we're not supposed to. But I want you to look at this. And this is something I posted on my Facebook a couple weeks ago. May we think of freedom not as a right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right. So remember, we do absolutely have the freedom to go out, but as a society, do we have that right? One of the things that I talked about last week was Homeland Security put real estate as an essential business. And I know there's a lot of controversy with that, but understand we're highly restricted, as we should be, on what we can do. In other words, we cannot have anything for cosmetic. We can't have stagers, we can't have carpet layers, we can't have painters out at any house. Even if it's a vacant house, unless it's a health and safety. If the roof's leaking, we can have obviously someone come out. Or if we're in escrow, if the home is already sold, obviously we can have inspectors out and workers to do what it takes to get it closed. So we can kind of finish out the transaction. But as far as getting the homes ready, we're really restricted to what we can do. The other thing is we are not even allowed to show occupied properties. We should do everything virtual as much as possible. And the only properties that we can show with no more than 2 people, and hopefully that they've seen it with the video first, are vacant homes. So I saw a lot of homes come on the market last week, and I was just curious. I was looking, and probably about 80% of them were vacant. And we'll talk about those stats, a little bit later on. But again, we're doing a great job as a country. We're flattening that curve so we're not overwhelming the hospitals. I would say it's 50-50 if we go from May to June. Remember, California was very aggressive and conservative on making the shelter in place way before other states. And it's proven that it was definitely a good call, probably saved thousands and thousands of life. So let's look at, obviously, the market this week. What you will find when you look at Danville, you'll see that the active stayed about the same, but the delta, when you look at the properties closed compared to the ones pending, you really see the market start to slow down a little bit. There were only 2 pendings in the last week. In San Ramon, very similar. You can see that basically the active listings are piling up. The pendings were going down from last week, and there was only 5 homes to go pending. I remember a couple of weeks ago, we were in the 15 to 25 in Danville, in San Ramon, going pending. So it has definitely slowed down, and we'll talk about where we kind of think the market's going after we look at these graphs. The other thing is look at Blackhawk. Now, Blackhawk really had 0 pendings. They had 1 home close and, 1 less pending, so it's basically has stayed stagnant. Alamo, very similar. Alamo's just had 1 pending last week. Again, those are normally, slower markets from that standpoint. So one of the big questions that I'm getting is, Joe, how is the unemployment going to affect home prices? Well, one is I can show you a couple of graphs that say that unemployment rates and home sales don't have a direct relationship. Matter of fact, during a couple of the past recessions when unemployment went up, home sales also went up. So there's no direct correlation. Now, I do feel that the longer we're in here, because they're expecting a V-type recovery, which we'll look at in a second. And so if we can get back to work within a couple months, if health-wise and safety-wise we're able to do that, I definitely think that the unemployment, they say about 60% of the unemployment, people filing for unemployment, are restaurant workers, movie, entertainment, where literally we'll get right back into it once we're able to get back to work, because God knows everyone wants to go out and get a good meal. We're kind of tired of the microwave, or at least I am tired of it. The other thing too, you can see that on the chart, the current unemployment rates compared to the past financial crisis. I heard today that the unemployment rate right now is about 13%. It's going to grow. They said it could go up to 20%. But when you look at what Goldman Sachs, how it was in the past during the Great Depression, the Great Recession, and the current crisis, they expect it to come right back down, within the year. So another thing too is, where was the market going? Where is it going from here? We talked about a V recovery. And when they talk to the expert, this is PricewaterhouseCoopers survey of 50 leaders from a cross-section of industries. And they're talking about 66%. They figure once if it were to end today, 66% of the business people out there feel that it would take less than a month. And 90% thinks it would take 1 to 3 months. Now, that was kind of like with 9/11. Within 3 months, basically the housing market was back. Now, that's the difference between the Great Recession. The Great Recession, it took 6 years. But again, that's because real estate caused the recession. It led us into the recession from that standpoint. So, another good graph, you can see that Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Morgan Stanley expect that V recovery. So again, people ask, what would you do if you were a buyer or a seller? Well, I can tell you what I did. I bought a condo today in San Ramon. Now, it was a condo. It's a lower end condo. I'm not that concerned about prices because, yeah, it could go down a little bit. But one thing you have to remember, when prices go down, they start from the top and go down. So we're definitely going to see a lot of inventory hit the market this summer, and sales might be a little sluggish, and they might be a little soft. But in the lower end, I think it's going to be under $1 million in the San Ramon Valley. I think it's going to bounce right back in. I didn't get a great deal on this home. I got a good deal. I got where something probably would have sold around the asking price. I got it for 97%. But it was one I wanted. It had been remodeled. Doesn't need a lot of work to do. So I purchased it. And I just finalized the agreement. I wrote the offer yesterday and did it today. So if you want to know how I feel about being a buyer, well, I was a buyer. Now, but you have to be a smart buyer, but it's going to be one of those things where when it's V, when all of a sudden you go, okay, where's the bottom? Well, you're already going to be up here. So it's hard. Did I buy at the bottom? I don't know. Maybe not. But again, because of the price range I felt comfortable doing, I wanted the investment, and I purchased it. Now, what would you do if you were a seller? Well, this seller put their home on the market. It was only on the market for a few days. What if they hadn't put it on the market? And again, this property is occupied, which means I couldn't see it. I had to buy it sight unseen. But with the virtual tours and the pictures, I bought the place sight unseen. Now, I wrote in the agreement that basically I had a week to do an inspection and go out there, because once we're in escrow, you have the right then obviously to do the inspection and check it out. But I had to buy it sight unseen because we are on the Kehrig team. We're following the guidelines, and guideline says if the property's occupied, you can't see it. So that's what I feel about the market. I think if you can be a buyer, but you need to be a smart buyer out there. And if you're a seller, if a property's occupied, some people are saying, why put it on the market? Well, remember, one of the ways we can do that is you can write an agreement on a house, sight unseen, and once it's in escrow, then you can do your inspections. So again, but even with the inspections, it's like when I go up this weekend and look at this home, no one's going to be home. It's only going to be myself. I wear a mask, I sanitize, and I sanitize in, sanitize going out, touch everything with the napkins that I carry. So very, very careful. We do have to now sign disclosures as real estate people before we even enter a house, that we don't feel that we have anything. But again, I have masks, I have sanitizers, and I'll inspect the house, and I'm most likely, I would think, going to remove that contingency and move forward because I think I got a very fair price. One of the things that, a lot of times these are really serious and they're on real estate. So as you know, last week, I'd like to always post some funny things I see on Facebook and online. And this is one of them. If you see my kids locked outside today, mind your business. We're having a fire drill. Hashtag homeschool. God bless, the parents out there doing the homeschooling. Thank God that I don't have to do the homeschooling, but the schools are doing such a great job. I mean, Zoom, man, I wish I would have invested in Zoom a few months ago, but Zoom, they're doing the classrooms on Zoom and they're having the study time, they're in the routine. So, to the parents out there and to the teachers that are still working, my daughter-in-law is a teacher and she's still on her computer every day with the Zoom, and she's still teaching the kids remotely. I will tell you, we're going to become out of this so much stronger in many different ways. But one of the things is just from the technology wise. So another thing that I had to laugh at, because it's kind of me, was thoughts and prayers going out to all the married men who spent months telling their wife, I'll do it when I've got time. My honey-do list is, I'm working in between, my honey-do list going out. But so anyway, like we talk about, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If there's anything we can do for you, we've gotten a lot of requests for sanitizer. We've been delivering that on a daily basis. I got a request today for actually some friends and clients for toilet paper, and I'm not sure where we can buy it, but I think we can gather up enough between our team to deliver it out to them, which we'll be doing. So anything need, my number is right there, 487-6838, area code 925, and joe at kehrigteam.com. I want to leave you one thought. Obviously, as always, I always like to end this with something that we've always told our kids growing up. May God bless you and keep you safe. May God bless the United States of America, and may God bless the world, because we are in this together. One thought I want to leave with you is this thing that I posted the other day. Happiness can be found in even the darkest of times, but only those who remember to turn on the light. God bless. Have a great week, and can't wait till we chat again next week.